Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
In 1889, Henri Bergson published Time and Free Will, an essay on the immediate data of consciousness, a work that immediately confronted a central tension, the perceived conflict between the scientific understanding of time as a measurable, spatialized medium and the directly lived experience of time within consciousness, which Bergson termed la durée, or duration. Bergson sought to resolve the apparent incompatibility between free will and determinism. His argument asserts that determinism holds sway only within the artificially constructed realm of spatialized time, a realm distinct from the genuine, felt time that constitutes our conscious existence. A key target of Bergson's critique was the emerging field of psychophysics, along with associationist psychology. Both disciplines sought to quantify and thereby spatialize psychological phenomena. Bergson contended that this endeavor to represent mental states as discrete, measurable magnitudes fundamentally misunderstands their essence. He argued that psychological states are, in reality, qualitative and interpenetrating, forming a continuous, indivisible flow akin to a melody rather than a collection of isolated notes. Bergson employed illustrative examples to convey the nature of duration. Consider the process of sugar dissolving in water, rather than perceiving this as a series of static states. A full sugar cube, a slightly smaller cube, and so on. Duration captures the continuous, evolving process of dissolution, the gradual transformation that defies division into distinct moments. Similarly, listening to a melody means more than hearing a succession of individual notes. The experience unfolds as a unified, evolving whole. Each preceding note subtly alters the perception of the subsequent ones, creating an indivisible, qualitative experience. As the melody progresses in time, it is being continuously altered by the accumulation of the preceding notes. A continuous adaptation by the listener to the intellect, according to Bergson, is intrinsically linked to spatial perception. Its primary function involves navigating the external world. In doing so, however, it distorts our experience of duration, imposing a spatial framework upon something that is inherently non-spatial. We carve up the continuous flow of consciousness into discrete, manageable units, thereby losing sight of its true nature. This act of imposing spatial divisions onto time reduces its nature as a continuously evolving melody into that of merely a string of notes. Herbert Spencer's evolutionary philosophy exerted a notable influence on Bergson, especially Spencer's emphasis on the continuous adaptation of organisms to their environments. This idea resonated with Bergson's conception of duration as perpetual change and becoming. However, Bergson notably diverged from Spencer's associationism, the theory that mental phenomena arise through the association of discrete ideas or sensations. Bergson considered this to be another attempt to falsely spatialize what is actually a continuous process. Time and Free Will met with diverse reactions upon its release. Within French intellectual circles, some prominent intellectuals embraced Bergson's novel approach to time and consciousness, quickly aligning with his emphasis on lived experience and his critique of mechanistic reductionism. Others, however, greeted his ideas with skepticism. Detractors challenged Bergson's seemingly anti-scientific stance and questioned the validity of relying so heavily on intuition and introspection. These initial philosophical debates surrounding Bergson's work centered on whether his concept of duration offered a genuine path toward understanding consciousness or merely represented a retreat into subjective experience. The text's exploration of Bergson's arguments will present the detailed analysis of their philosophical implications. We will examine their lasting impact on subsequent philosophical and scientific thought. What specific aspects of lived experience did Bergson believe were lost when time was reduced to a spatial parameter? How did these aspects support the potential for free will? These questions will begin the onset in the examination of Bergson's writing that for 1889. Henri Bergson, Time and Free Will, an essay on the immediate data of consciousness. Bergson's Time and Free Will emerged from a philosophical climate dominated by both mechanistic determinism and the burgeoning field of experimental psychology, particularly as championed by figures like Wilhelm Wundt. Wundt, through his establishment of the first laboratory dedicated to psychological research, sought to provide empirical grounding to the study of the mind. His work led to an increased focus on dissecting conscious experiences into discrete elements. Associationist psychology, a dominant paradigm at the time, held that mental states comprise combinations of these isolated elements. Bergson, however, directly challenged this view, arguing that it fundamentally misunderstands the nature of subjective experience. He contended that associating psychological states in a linear fashion distorts their intrinsic characteristics. Instead, Bergson offered a revolutionary concept of duration, or la durée, at the heart of the essence of consciousness. Duration, as Bergson conceived it, the early qualitative, heterogeneous, and indivisible stream. He described the experience of duration as an unbroken flow, a continuous process of becoming, where past experiences accumulate and interpenetrate the present. It is not a collection of separate moments but a unified whole. Bergson used the metaphor of a rolling snowball to express this. Past experiences are analogous to the initial core of the snowball. As the snowball rolls, accumulating snow, it grows incrementally. This corresponds to past experiences joining the current moment. These successive layers are inseparable. Instead of discrete elements, each layer, or past experience, modifies the current state as the snowball embodies the entirety of its history. Bergson argued that the intellect, by its very nature, is ill-equipped to grasp duration directly. He believed that the intellect, adapted for practical action and spatial perception, inevitably spatializes time, reducing it to a series of quantifiable, interchangeable moments. This intellectual distortion, Bergson argued, obscures the true nature of subjective experience, which can only be understood through intuition, a faculty that directly apprehends duration, unfiltered by the intellect's analytical framework. Bergson's critique of the intellect's limitations was thus crucial for his exposition of free will. For Bergson, free will does not arise from a metaphysical freedom independent of causes, nor is it simply the product of isolated motives within the mind. He described free will as the entire living personality expressing itself directly through a free act. As each experience interpenetrates, no external cause deterministically produces an action. Instead, the entire past of the individual contributes to the act of choosing, or the active, lived experience of the current moment. To illustrate, he might describe a complex decision. The decision would not be the simple weighing of opposing forces. It would arise from the individual's entire history and the complex interplay of their emotions, memories, instincts, and all the various aspects of their personality. It is the whole self that chooses, not a collection of isolated elements. The work of Wundt, with his emphasis on breaking down consciousness into its smallest components, epitomized the associationist tendencies Bergson criticized. Wundt's experimental methods, focusing on the quantifiable aspects of experience, were designed to reveal the underlying laws governing mental processes. However, Bergson believed this methodology inadvertently obscured the qualitative essence of consciousness. His work was, in this sense, a direct response to the dominance of a scientific, mechanistic approach to the study of the mind, and an alternative to its reductive The reception of time and free will was mixed, yet deeply impactful. Critics, in particular, targeted Bergson's methodology and what they perceived as his anti-scientific bent. They questioned the degree to which intuition could provide reliable knowledge. Others noted the difficulty of empirically verifying his claims about duration. However, Bergson's ideas also garnered significant support, particularly from those seeking alternatives to mechanistic determinism. The influence of time and free will on figures like William James was profound. James, who championed his own pragmatist philosophy, found in Bergson's concept of duration an eloquent articulation of the continuous flow of consciousness he described in his seminal work, The Principles of Psychology. Bergson's emphasis on lived experience and the unity of consciousness resonated closely with James' own exploration of subjective experience. Indirectly, Bergson's work helped to pave the way for the emergence of phenomenology and existentialism. These philosophical movements, characterized by their focus on the subjective experience of the individual, drew inspiration from Bergson's emphasis on the qualitative nature of time. His concept of duration provided a framework for understanding the lived experience as inherently dynamic and evolving.
We really appreciate you tuning in to this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.